In there, I'll tell you, the transmitter here is a Canadian Marconi FRT 501. It's weighs about 650 pounds. Looks like an old, looks like a blue painted refrigerator from about 1948. And it's a pair of 400s modulated by a pair. So we're doing about 500 watts carrier. It's plate modulated. And
Jerry here, D-Lab, with a real treat for you guys. I've got a National NC-270 receiver. Has not been turned on in over 20 years. I have the original box, original manual, and of course, the radio. So let's give it a good look over, and then I'm going to bring her up slow on a variac and hopefully bring this thing back to life, because I have somebody that wants it. So here she is, the National 270 receiver, built in 1960. Back then they sold for $295. That's a lot of money. It covers 80 through 6 meter ham bands. They called this thing the Red Hot Set with a cool blue look. So what we're going to do is examine each piece. So I'll look over the box, of course the manual, the receiver, see what we have to do. It's going to require some cleanup, but this thing is in primo condition for its age. Well, here is the original box. It still has some markings on it, showing where it was manufactured, serial number. Thing is in excellent condition. Obviously, when you ship something like this, you don't want to ship it in this original box. You got to protect that as well as the receiver. Here's the original manual. It's in great condition. Kind of neat how they use this blueprint. I'm not sure how they did that, but the manual's complete with the schematic, parts list, etc. Well, let's give the main radio a good look over. As you can see, it's in excellent condition. Yeah, it's a little bit dirty, but it's been sitting around for 20 years. What do you expect? The glass has no cracks in it, thank God. There's obviously some dirt and grime, which will clean right off. There's mold growing in the splines of these controls, but that's typical. Main tuning turns. You can see the pointer moving, good sign. So it looks like it's just going to require some good cosmetic cleanup, a little polishing, but the front panel is perfect. Here's the top view. There's no dents, a little bit of a stain there. There's something sitting right there. Pop that out. But the paint's in good condition. No scratches that I can see. Just needs a good cleaning. Let's look at the back. Well, here's the back side of the radio. Power cord is still in good condition. It's not all cracked and dry rotted. You can see those old paper decals are still intact, not tore up. Very cool. Shows the tube layout of the NC-270. And down here, there's that serial number, which matches the box. You've got your jacks here for the relay, your speaker, and of course the antenna. And it appears though there's a lot of dust on that chassis. So the next thing to do, let's get it out of the cabinet. Before I pop it out of the cabinet, I want to show you the bottom side. It still has this cool little tilt assembly. Everything's intact. Little rubber feet are still there. This thing's in great shape. Alright, so I've removed the 4 screws that hold the cage on to the back of the receiver. You're seeing this at the same time I'm seeing it. I have not opened this for inspection until now. Alright, I found I had to lift it straight up. There was a little ridge up there, I guess, between the front panel. So here we go, because I want you to see what I see. There she is, Dust Mite City. A lot of dust, but no signs that anybody's been in here messing around. So I'm going to have to clean all that off. Then I'm going to check the tubes, make sure they're seated, make sure everything comes up safely. But man, She really looks good. So let's take a look bottom side. Well, before I interrupt this thing and pop the bottom, I wanted to give you a real good close-up on the chassis, just so we can check the condition. Everything looks completely stock and in very good condition. Yeah, it's dusty, but the dust moves real easily and it's clean underneath. So it wasn't stored like in a basement or a icy garage. This thing was just stored in somebody's house on a shelf or something, and it just gathered dust over time. Here's the crystal calibrator, and the crystal actually plugs into a 9-pin tube socket. There's another one down here plugged in. I'm not sure what that one does. Tuning capacitor has some dust in the little fins. We'll have to clean all that out. I'll do that when I clean the controls. But man, this thing really looks great. It's been a long time since I've ran across a radio like this in need of refurbishment. So we got these little rubber feet that unscrew. And of course a couple of the screws that hold the bottom, but here she goes. So you got this little tilt lever there in the way, but anyway, it looks super, it looks untouched. So I'll do a close-up sweep here. Man, just look at that construction. Can you imagine how much it would cost to build something like this today? It's very nice. And it's not full of those black beauties. So this radio won't even require recapping, except for maybe the main filter cap. Well, the next thing I need to do is get this dust out of here. So I'm going to use a vacuum cleaner and an acid brush and get the majority of that off of there, because I really don't want to be exposed to what this radio has been exposed to over the last 20 years. You never know what's in that dust. Well, here she is after a little vacuuming. You see the chassis looks pretty darn good. A little bit of staining here, but I bet you that'll clean right up with a little bit of Windex. So what I want to do next is I'm pretty much going to reseat the tubes, pull them out, maybe put a little contact cleaner in there, work those. I'm going to give all the controls a little bit of a cleaning and lube because I don't want anything binding, and then we're going to bring her up slow on a variac. Getting ready for the initial power up of the National, I gave all the controls a quick cleaning with a little bit of deox. I took WD-40, kind of freed up some of the bearing surfaces, make sure things turn freely. I did notice that this cal switch is seized. I can't move it, okay? So that goes to that switch right there that turns on and off the calibrator. So I hit it with some WD-40. I'm hoping over time it frees up. If not, I'll have to disassemble it and fix it. So I got my meter set up right now, looking at the power coming off of the 5Y3 through this resistor network to the filter cap. So I'm going to watch the DC voltage as we bring her up, and obviously I'm going to use the variac for this because I want to bring the power up slow and constantly monitor the amperage on that meter and the voltage on this meter. Make sure everything looks good. If not, I'll turn it back down, investigate what the problem is. I know some of you have wrote in and said, hey, I don't have a variac, but I've been using a light bulb in series. That's okay if you have a short circuit condition, okay? But when you're bringing up these old receivers for the first time, you've got to use a variac, guys. There's plenty of them available out there. Yeah, they may not have the nice metering and all that, but you can buy the old PowerStat type fairly inexpensively. I'd highly recommend you get one. All right, let's power it up. I killed the main lights in the shop to reduce glare on the metering here so you can see what's going on. So I'm going to bring up the voltage nice and slow. So there's like 20 volts. I'm watching my amperage over here. We're going to watch this meter for signs of life, and look at there. Here comes the high voltage, so that's good. Still watching my current meter. So there's about 40 volts. You can see our high voltage is climbing, and I have dial lights over here. So let me move the camera positioning So you can see that. But so far so good. So you can see the glow of the dial lights. What we're going to do is we'll put her on 80 meters, RF gain all the way up. We're going to bring up my AF gain, go to standby, or I should say receive. It was in standby. Okay. Go to maximum on my bandwidth, notch and BFO I don't really care about. So what we're looking for right now is hopefully some white noise will eventually come out of that speaker once the tubes warm up. Alright, so I'm going to bring her up a little more. There's 60 volts, drawing approximately a 1/4 amp. So I've got a Hammerlin speaker hooked up. Obviously you don't want to fire up a receiver without a speaker on it because you won't know if it's working, will you? So far I have no audio. I'm also noticing that my high voltage is dropping. See there? It's going down. That was over about 100 volts a minute ago. So hopefully we don't have a problem, but what it might be is the tubes are starting to draw current, which is going to pull down the high voltage. I'm not drawing excessive current. We're still just over 1/4 amp. So I just brought my voltage up a little more. I'm up around 75 volts. Guess what I'm hearing out of the speaker? So there's the AF gain. Okay. Okay, getting some life. Not hearing any stations, but right now all I have for an antenna is a jumper wire. Good thing is I'm not hearing some terrible 60 cycle hum. So now I'm up to about 1/2 amp at 90 volts. High voltage is sitting there around 150. So this is the mode switch. Dirty. Still getting no stations. Oh, whatever I did. That was the antenna trim cap. So that's 80 meters. We got some receipt, that's good. Let's try 40. So that's a good sign. What I'm going to do now is clean that mode switch, and then we'll give her full power again and see if we can get some better receive out of it. I'm running the receiver at about 100 volts input. Now if you look down here, it's got a voltage regulator tube. He's lit. That's a really good sign. Looks like all the tubes are lit up. I've got the volume all the way down. And here we have a little bit of hum. So more than likely, Mr. Filter Cap will need to be changed. But that's something routinely you should do anyway with these vintage receivers. Okay, going around to the front, see she's lit up. Here's 20 meters. Still need to clean that antenna trimming little cap, don't I? Not getting anything there. I did clean this mode switch. There's 80. So on a jumper wire, I wouldn't expect much more than that, but it is trying. CW. See if the BFO works, huh? Yep. Selectivity. So I'm guessing that this thing's going to spring right to life, but I should get a new filter cap in it. All in all, she's coming along. I'm very happy with this project. So here's another good thing. The S meter works. And if I turn the RF gain back, it goes down with it. So that's a super good thing, because I'll tell you what, if that meter is froze up, I'd be hosed. Here's a close-up of that calibration on-off switch. Still froze up, no signs that it's moving. When you adjust your calibration, it's pretty cool. It actually moves the whole dial back and forth, right? So it moves that whole plastic dial. Isn't that wild? So the next thing I'm going to do is remove all the knobs and get them soaking, get that mold off of them. I'm going to work on this cal switch, try to free that up, and then I need to explore what it's going to take to change out that main filter cap, because it obviously should be changed. There is some hum, and I wouldn't leave it in there anyway, because it's already been in there since 1960, right? I was able to get the nut loose behind this front little bezel, so I'm going to be able to retract that switch, and I'll work on it, try to get her unseized, because that would be a very hard part to locate for the National. So freeing up the switch has become quite the task. It is frozen solid. The shaft is bound into this bushing area. Unfortunately, I've seen this happen a lot. So what I did is I removed this little snap ring, okay, from the shaft. What my plan is to push this shaft through the bushing area, clean it, put it back in. But to do that, I have to remove this phenolic piece here, because that will just break, because you can see the contact, right? So I ground off these little pop rivets. I'm going to remove this, put the shaft here into a vise, and tap it on through, hopefully freeing it up. I'll clean it, lube it, put it back together. Pop this phenolic off. Already got one off. Then I'll be able to slide this off. Now I should be able to put some force on the shaft, push it through. So good news, I was able to heat and tap the shaft down, so now I should be able to clean the surfaces, put it back together, it'd be as good as new. Alright, I got the switch back together. I used 256 screws to replace those two little pop rivets, and you can see she works just like she used to. Thank God. Time to put it back in. Well, let's give that calibrator a check out. Since I just fixed the switch, I'm on 40 meters, about 7.1 meg. You see it? So if you want to hear it, go to sideband. It's working. So it's looking good for the little National receiver. Next thing I need to do is check the tubes. Also check the alignment and make sure that the calibrator is able to go to the markers as you slide the dial back and forth. But it's really coming along great. I'm very happy with this. Little update. I checked the tubes. V2 right here, the first IF, is a CBS tube and it was shorted. So I replaced it with this nice Sylvania. It's kind of interesting that all the tubes in this National have the CBS logo. I bet these were the originals. Will something look different? Well, yeah, that's because I spent a good hour cleaning the face. I soaked these knobs in hot water and dishwashing liquid. Then I worked with a dental pick and a toothbrush, cleaning all the crud out of those splines. And now this thing's starting to really look like a nice receiver. So how cool is that? The old National receiver that's been off and gathering dust for over 20 years with very little effort came back to life. So that's what I wanted to present in this video, was just the initial checkout and the possibility of getting her going, and it's looking good. So I will post a follow-up to this video once I have everything dialed in, but right now I'm very happy with the project. We'll see you again. Terry here at D-Lab.